Hello everybody and welcome to the NRL round recap, where we look back at what has happened in the previous round and recap it. This episode, we look into the second round of the 2023 NRL season. So the opening match of the round saw us at Penrith as the Penrith Panthers took on the South Sydney Rabbitohs in a game which has sort of metastasised into a modern day rivalry. It was a very close game. There were a few controversial decisions, like in all big games for some reason, but the Penrith Panthers were able to edge out the South Sydney Rabbitohs to take the win. I will like to say more about the game, but obviously all the talk from this fixture has been about something that happened not on the field but off it. Obviously it's been pretty much now been made aware that somebody in the crowd racially abused Latrell Mitchell, which is like, it's fucking 2023. Like, are we seriously still having these debates of like, you know, being racist, homophobic, you know, stuff like that? Like, I understand you can go after players, but as soon as you draw onto the like just derogatory comments, and that's like, you just lost. And it's just, I feel like it is a kind of thing when it comes to Latrell Mitchell itself is I genuinely think the reason he gets probably significantly more hate than people who are also like him, which is, you know, a little bit arrogant to say the least, is probably because he is an Aboriginal and it is due to racism. Like, there's no way you can say that it isn't. Like, I feel like Munster also is a little bit, you know, a bit of a mongrel in him. I mean, Latrell's got a bit of mongrel in him, but also Munster does as well. You don't see even remotely close to the same level of hate that Latrell gets compared to someone like Cameron Munster. So that's my opinion on that. It was actually an all-right game, to say the least, by both teams. It's just everything that has come out about what has happened has just left a foul taste in everyone's mouth about it. Now we go into the first game on the Friday, and it was the Parramatta Eels versus the Cronulla Sharks. Oh boy, this was a high-scoring game, and oh boy, what a performance by William Kennedy, getting a hat-trick. Well done to him. It was very weird trying to look into how this game would have gone out. Obviously, Parramatta only just losing to Melbourne in the first game, and the Sharks kind of being mistreated by the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I think the Sharks came out not the best. Obviously, they were down 2 tries immediately into the game, but they really just settled into their own and just in the latter parts of the first half and just got to a point where they were only just behind Parramatta, and then they just kind of just ran away with it. But also, I think the big factor of this game was Braden Trindle's conversions, because that's pretty much all that separated the teams. So I still think Parramatta are going to go very well this year. I know obviously they're starting 0-2, but you're coming off against a team like a Melbourne team that's obviously, like, you know, they're coached by arguably one of the, not even arguably, but one of the best coaches in the NRL. And then you take on the Sharks, who came second last year. Somehow, but they did, and they're still showing that they are a pretty good team. So I don't think Parramatta fans should lose all hope yet. And now we go to the final game on Friday, and it was the Queensland Derby as the Brisbane Broncos take on the North Queensland Cowboys. This was weird, I will say, watching this game. I don't think the North Queensland Cowboys are grubs. I don't think they are, but it's just some of the plays just kept doing some really grubby things. I mean, obviously, the big thing was Scott Drinkwater putting his shoulder right into Corey Oates' jaw, breaking it, and getting sin-binned. I think that was the right call, though you could very much make a case for that to be a send-off, but obviously Drinkwater's going to be out for a couple of games. And it's just, there was a passage of play when the Broncos were sort of dominating in that second half, where it's like almost every tackle, a Cowboys player would try to go the legs, pick them up, and dump the Broncos players in a very awkward position. It's just, I've never seen anything like this from the Cowboys. But I think Reece Walsh had a absolute showcase match in his first match fully with the Broncos. First match back with the Broncos. Set up 3 tries and scored one of his own. All in all, brilliant return performance. Ezra Mann had a good game as well. I think this has kind of shown that Brisbane are a force to be taken seriously with, and it also kind of shows that the Cowboys are continuing from last round of having a sort of collapse in the second half. Whether this continues into round 3, we won't know. Now we go to the first game on Saturday, and it was the Sydney Roosters taking on the New Zealand Warriors. Now, I have to give big credit to the Warriors. They hung in there for the entire game, and it only just in the last couple of minutes got out of reach for them. I do think the Roosters, it wasn't really that great of a performance, but obviously it was enough to, get the win. So I think obviously the Roosters now, they finally got their first win of the season, so they can start developing and, how they have like that mid-season to late season surge and actually show that they are a very good team. But I do see a lot of promising signs coming out of the Warriors. Still not sure about them making the finals, but I do think that they keep going like this against a team that a lot of people have to win the premiership. I think there are some very positive signs to come for them. Now we go to the second game on the Saturday, and it was the Redcliffe Dolphins taking on the Canberra Raiders. This was a very scrappy match, to say the very least. Very close, only taken out of the reach in the last couple of minutes by Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow getting the try. I obviously made a short saying about, Redcliffe are winning the premiership, and people titled it as sarcasm, but unfortunately on YouTube, sarcasm doesn't exist. But I don't know how the Dolphins are going to go for the remainder of the season, but they're off to a good start. They've got to play the Knights in their first away game, so I don't know if that's going to have any effect on them. But yeah, I mean, it's a perfect start for the Dolphins. I mean, they kind of need to start well because you did actually, get the fans in. It's like a team comes in and they come like instantly last. It's like, why the hell would you support them? Especially when they're in a competing market with another historic team in the Brisbane Broncos. So all in all, very good performance. I still think Canberra are going to go all right. I mean, it's hard to say. It's a very weird game, but I do think both teams should go okay. And now we go into the final game on the Saturday, as it was the Melbourne Storm versus the Canterbury Bulldogs. I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought from everyone I was talking to, even my mate who is a Bulldogs fan thought the Storm were going to dominate. But oh boy, was that not the case. The Bulldogs came out firing. Obviously, having the worst performance in round one, they came out and put the Storm to the sword. It's basically what happened. They did absolutely brilliantly. And I did see, obviously, a lot of Bulldogs fans on Twitter were going about saying, their fans need to stop being negative after one result. And I think someone said it's like, one sunny day doesn't make a summer. But then the person responded saying one snowy day, one day of rain doesn't equal a whole winter. So that's actually, it was a good analogy. But yeah, I think the Storm kind of were just caught off guard. But I do think it was a good win for the Bulldogs, and it could start to kick off their season. Now we go into the Sunday games, and the first one is the West Tigers versus the Newcastle Knights. Now, this is probably going to be pretty short and sweet, but how did the Tigers not win this? Like, you're telling me that, and I know I'm repeating myself, but the Knights had Kalen Ponga ruled out within the first 90 seconds of the match. In all seriousness, actually, be safe, Kalen. We obviously don't want you to have absolute complete damage to your head for like the rest of your life. Like seriously, like it's getting to the point where it's like you got to think in probably about a year or so that potentially, if this continues, medical retirement could actually become a logistical option. But anyways, he did seem fine after the end of the match, so he should be all good. But then you also lost Jaden Brayley early on in the game, and then 30 minutes in, Dominic Young gets sin-binned. And then the Knights decided to use their captain's challenge there, which is quite honestly the worst ever captain's challenge I've ever seen. And then 15 minutes left in the game, Jacob Saifidi gets sent off. So for about 25 minutes, the West Tigers had a man advantage. They did score at least a try in those periods, but it still wasn't enough to beat the Knights. Like, I don't know if this is just the West Tigers are still bad, or it was a extremely gutsy performance by the Knights. I think it's a bit of both. But then as well, like obviously the Knights have got a very hard challenge next week, taking on the Redcliffe Dolphins at home, but it is the Knights' first home game, so who knows what happens there. But you've obviously got players potentially like Kalen out. Jacob Saifidi's definitely going to be out. I think Brayley should be all right, but yeah, it's going to be pretty much a full-strength Dolphins team up against maybe, I wouldn't say a reserve Knights team, but a Knights team with a few key players out. Probably see the debut of Greg Margie though. And speaking of Greg Margie, we go into his formal team with the last game of the round being the St. George Illawarra Dragons up against the Gold Coast Titans. The Dragons' first game of the season, and they played well. I gotta say, they did play well. I mean, the Titans did go out to a really good start. It's just the Dragons just hunkered down and really just got into them. I think it was an alright performance as well by the Titans. It's just the Dragons just came out to play 32-18, relatively close. It's only by 14 points was the win, but still, it's a very good win for the Dragons, trying to dispel probably the worst off-season I've ever seen a club have. So, I don't know. I think there could be some good signs for the Dragons. Obviously, pretty much, I think everyone and their mum, including me, had the Dragons coming last. But if they could keep going like this, they definitely won't be, because I think there's probably a bunch of other clubs that probably could end up being the spoon. So, there we go. That is the end of my round recap. What did you guys think of the second round? What do you expect for round 3? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video.